Caleb walked through the mall alone, a place full of old memories, but nothing he was expecting, until a man grabbed his wrist. A man he hadn't seen since he was 10. His father. This story isn't about forgiveness. It's about what happens when a son is finally ready to ask, why? The mall was half empty, echoing with the lazy hum of soft music and the faint squeak of sneakers on polished tile. It was the kind of place people only came to out of boredom now. Retirees walking laps, teenagers loitering near vending machines, and the occasional shopper still pretending that department stores mattered. Caleb Monroe, 28, walked slowly past the shuttered entrance of a bookstore he remembered from his childhood. The smell of cinnamon pretzels and fabric softener still clung to the air, and for a second, the familiarity of it all made his chest tighten in a way he couldn't name. He wasn't supposed to be here. He had an hour to kill before an appointment downtown. It had been raining. The mall was warm. That was all. He wasn't looking for anything. At least, he didn't think he was. Caleb turned a corner near the old fountain, the one that used to spit water 10 feet high, now barely a trickle surrounded by fake ferns, and glanced briefly into the glass of a shoe store. His own reflection startled him. He looked tired. He looked older than 28. Dark jeans, a gray hoodie, that same stiff tension in his shoulders that he always carried when he was alone in public. And he usually was. He passed a woman arguing softly with a child over a stuffed animal, a couple holding hands, a man in a suit scrolling through his phone near the escalator. Then something strange happened. A hand closed gently but firmly around his wrist. Not a shove, not a grab, just recognition. Caleb stopped cold, startled, and turned. There was a man standing behind him, older, maybe mid-50s, wearing a weathered leather jacket, his graying hair pushed back in messy waves, and his face, worn, thinner than Caleb remembered, but unmistakable. His father. The noise of the mall seemed to disappear. All that was left was the pressure on his wrist, and the look in the man's eyes, unsure, almost afraid. "Caleb?" the man said. His voice was rough, like someone who hadn't used it much lately. Caleb stared. "What the hell are you doing?" he said, not loud, but sharp enough that a woman nearby looked over before turning away. The man let go of his wrist slowly, hands up like he knew he'd crossed a line. "I didn't. I wasn't sure it was you," he said. Caleb stepped back a little. "But you thought you'd grab me anyway." "I'm sorry." The man's voice cracked slightly. I've been coming here, most days, for a while." Caleb frowned. "Why?" I heard you were living back in Cleveland. I didn't know how to find you." Caleb let out a bitter laugh. "You didn't know how to find me? You disappeared for almost 20 years. For a moment, neither of them said anything. People passed them by. A group of teenagers, an older man with a coffee, but none of it registered. Caleb's heartbeat was pounding in his ears. His father looked down, then back up, eyes damp. "I was a coward." Caleb didn't argue. "You left when I was 10. His father nodded slowly. "I know." "And you stayed gone." "I know." Caleb swallowed the tightness rising in his throat. His jaw clenched. "You don't get to say, 'I know,' like that makes it okay." His father took a slow breath, nodding again. "You're right." They stood there in silence. Caleb looked at the man in front of him, a man whose face he used to picture at night, trying to remember, whose name he'd stopped saying out loud by the time he was 12, whose voice he hadn't heard in nearly 2 decades. And now, here he was, in a mall, of all places. Caleb turned slightly, as if to walk away, but his father spoke again. "Would you sit with me?" Caleb stopped. "Why?" His father looked at him with something that wasn't quite hope. It wasn't quite desperation either. It was something else. Maybe need. "Because I know I don't deserve it. But I'd still like to try." Caleb looked at the man, at the lines around his eyes, at the jacket he used to wear when Caleb was a kid, at the way he didn't move, didn't beg, didn't push, just stood there, waiting. And Caleb, against everything he'd told himself for years, nodded once. 15 minutes. His father blinked, then gave a quiet smile. "Okay." They walked toward the food court without speaking. The sound of the fountain returned, and behind it, the slow, impossible weight of everything that had gone unsaid. They found an empty table near the edge of the food court, tucked between a shuttered cookie stand and an out-of-order soda machine. The kind of place no one lingered anymore. Perfect for a conversation that neither of them was ready to have, yet neither could avoid. Caleb sat across from his father, arms folded across his chest, back stiff against the plastic chair. He didn't say anything at first. Neither did his dad. The silence stretched between them like something alive. Thick. Crowded. Waiting. Finally, Caleb broke it. "So where have you been?" His father let out a slow breath, eyes on the table. "Pittsburgh, mostly. Sometime in Erie. Then back here." Caleb nodded once, flatly. "That close?" "Yeah." "And you didn't think to reach out before now?" His dad looked at him. Really looked. "I thought about it. Every year. But you didn't." "I couldn't." Caleb scoffed. Couldn't or wouldn't? A long pause. "Both." His father leaned back, hands clasped in front of him. "When I left, it wasn't supposed to be forever." Caleb gave a hollow laugh. "Could have fooled me. I messed up. I know that doesn't fix anything, but—" "It doesn't," Caleb cut in. Another pause, deeper this time. "Why did you leave?" His dad didn't answer right away. He stared at the scratched table, as if the answer might be carved into it somewhere. Then he spoke, slower than before. "Your mom and we were drowning, fighting all the time. And I wasn't strong enough to stay, so I told myself leaving was better. Cleaner." "Cleaner?" Caleb said, voice rising. "I was 10. His dad looked up sharply, pain flickering in his eyes. "I know." Caleb leaned forward now, his voice hard but not loud. "You know what happens to a kid when his dad just disappears? When he stops calling? Stops writing? You know what it's like to wait by the window on your birthday for 3 years before finally giving up?" His father's lips pressed together. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Caleb leaned back again, breathing hard. "You didn't just leave her. You left me." The weight of those words sat between them like something permanent. Then his dad nodded once, slowly. "I know." And this time, it didn't feel like an excuse. It felt like he'd been carrying those words too, just on the other side of the wall Caleb had built. After a moment, his father pulled something from his coat pocket. A small, creased photo. He slid it across the table. Caleb hesitated before picking it up. It was a picture of the two of them. Caleb, maybe 6 years old, sitting on his dad's shoulders at the zoo, both of them smiling. Caleb stared at it for a long time. "I've kept that in my wallet since I left," his father said quietly. Caleb didn't know what to say. The photo felt both familiar and foreign, like looking through a window into a life that had stopped existing. He set it down slowly. "You kept the picture, but not the promise." The words weren't meant to be cruel. Just true. His father nodded. "I know." More silence. Then Caleb asked, Do you have another family? His dad shook his head. No, I never remarried. Why not? Because I never really came back from leaving the first one. Caleb looked away, jaw tight. You made it out like we were the mistake. His dad shook his head quickly. No. God, no. You were never the mistake, Caleb. He leaned forward now, his voice lower, steadier. I was. I was the one who couldn't face the mess I made. So I ran. And then I didn't know how to come back. Caleb stared at him for a long moment, the words soaking in. He didn't forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But for the first time, he didn't feel like the silence between them was his alone to carry. The mall noise returned, trays clattering, kids laughing, music overhead. Caleb looked down at the photo again, then up at the man who had once carried him on his shoulders. 15 minutes are up. His father didn't move, just nodded, slow and quiet. I know. Caleb stood, slipping the photo into his jacket pocket. He turned to leave, then stopped. Same time tomorrow? His father looked up, surprised. His voice cracked as he answered. Yeah, I'd like that. Caleb gave a faint nod and walked away. He didn't look back, but for the first time in 18 years. He wanted to. Caleb didn't sleep much that night. He kept hearing his father's voice in pieces, the pauses, the guilt, the way he'd said, I never really came back. He wasn't sure what made him say it. Same time tomorrow? Maybe it was curiosity, or closure, or just unfinished business. At noon the next day, Caleb was already in the food court. Same table, same silence. And then, footsteps. His father. No hesitation this time. He just sat down across from him, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. He slid one toward Caleb. Cream and sugar, right? Caleb arched an eyebrow. You remember that? His father smiled faintly. Some things stick. They sipped in silence for a moment. The mall was livelier today. A school group in matching T-shirts moved through the corridor, trailing laughter and backpacks. Caleb stared at his cup. What did you expect yesterday? His dad shrugged. Honestly, I thought you'd walk away or punch me. Maybe both. Caleb gave a short laugh. I thought about it. A beat of silence passed. Then Caleb leaned forward slightly. Why now? His father didn't dodge it. Because I'm sick. Caleb froze. What? Heart. Nothing dramatic, but it's real, and it made me realize I might run out of time without ever fixing anything. Caleb didn't speak. His father continued. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Caleb. I came here because I want you to know who I was, not just who I failed to be. Caleb stared at him, trying to find the space between anger and understanding. There was something in his father's face. Not desperation, not pity. Just an old sadness that had been sitting too long without a name. You were my hero, you know, Caleb said suddenly. His father looked up, startled. When I was a kid, I used to wait by the window every Saturday morning. Thought maybe you'd show up with pancakes or something. Thought maybe you got lost. He paused. I stopped waiting around 11. His dad's jaw tightened, his eyes glassy. I wanted to be better for you. I just didn't know how to come back after I broke it. You could have tried. I'm trying now. Caleb didn't respond. He looked away, watching 2 teenagers argue over a phone. Then his father pulled something from his coat. Not a photo this time, but a small envelope. He slid it across the table. What's this? Letters. I wrote you over the years. Never mailed them. Thought you might want to read them. Or burn them. Caleb hesitated before taking the envelope and tucking it into his jacket. He didn't say thank you, but he didn't refuse. They sat in silence again, sipping coffee. "I'm not sure what to do with all this," Caleb said quietly. "Me neither. Feels like trying to glue together something that's already cracked all the way through." His father nodded slowly. "Maybe. Or maybe we just build something new next to it." Caleb looked at him, unsure. "That easy?" "No. But it's something." Caleb stood first this time, cup still half full. "I'll read them. The letters." His father nodded. "Take your time." "I will." He paused. "Same time next week?" His dad looked up, surprised again. "Yeah, of course." Caleb turned, walking away slowly through the mall, not with peace, not yet, but with something close to possibility. And in his jacket, between the folds of worn paper, a voice he hadn't heard in 18 years was finally ready to speak. It took Caleb 4 days to open the envelope. He kept it on the kitchen counter, under a set of unopened bills and a cracked mug he hadn't thrown out yet. Every time he walked past it, something twisted in his stomach. But on the 5th night, when the rain tapped gently against the windows and the apartment felt quieter than usual, he sat down, unfolded the flap, and began to read. There were 8 letters, all written on different kinds of paper. Hotel stationery, lined notebook sheets, even the back of a printed receipt, all in the same handwriting, messy, careful, unsent. The first was dated 2 years after his father had left. "You probably hate me. That's okay. I'm writing this in a motel off I-90. I don't have a real address anymore, but I wanted you to know I still think about you every morning. I still see your face every time I hear a kid laugh." One by one, Caleb read them all. Some were full of regret. Some were angry. At himself. At life. Some were just updates. Where he'd worked. What he'd dreamed. What he remembered. "You had this laugh, like a cough and a shout, all at once. You did it when you beat me at cards. I hear it sometimes in my sleep." Caleb read until well after midnight. When he finally looked up, he felt a strange mix of hollow and full. He didn't know what he was supposed to feel, but he knew one thing. He couldn't carry it alone anymore. The next weekend, Caleb returned to the mall. Same table, same soda machine. His father was already there, cup of coffee in hand. He looked thinner than the week before, but his face lit up when he saw Caleb approach. "Hey." Caleb sat down. No small talk this time. "I read them." His father nodded once, quiet. "I figured." "Some of them were hard." "I know." Caleb paused. "Some of them made me remember stuff I forgot I even had in me." His father blinked quickly, the moisture in his eyes sudden and raw. Caleb reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope. He slid it across the table. "You should keep these." His dad hesitated. "You sure?" "Yeah?" A long silence. Then, "I want to know you," Caleb said quietly. His dad looked at him, stunned. "You don't owe me that." "I know, but I still want to." They sat there for a long time. They talked. Not about the past anymore. About now. His father told him about the night shifts at the auto parts warehouse, about the apartment with the broken heater, about how he still cooked the same chili recipe Caleb's mom hated. Caleb told him about his job, his failed relationship, the way silence made him nervous sometimes. "I guess I learned to live without noise," he said. His father nodded. "I guess I learned to live without a son." Neither said anything after that, but both understood it couldn't stay that way anymore. Before they stood to leave, Caleb asked, "How much time do you think you've got?" His dad looked down. "Not sure." "Months?" Maybe more. Depends on how kind the clock decides to be." Caleb nodded slowly, then smiled faintly. "Let's use it, then?" His father's face broke. Not into tears, not yet, but into something deeper: relief and hope. They left the mall side by side, not as father and son. Not yet, but as two people who had lost a lifetime and still had just enough time left to build something from what remained. Not everything, but something. And sometimes, that's more than enough. We don't always get closure, not the kind we imagine. But sometimes, we get a chance to understand. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after they end.